The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Paranormal Concept show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and tonight's show is going to be an absolutely fabulous one. We've got the guests in the green room, and it's a blast already, I'll tell you. We're going to be discussing Jamaica in tonight, so I'm going to introduce my co-host first, and then we'll bring on the other guests. So, hello, Kerry.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you? How you been this week?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Yeah, it's been a good week this week.
Cool. Are you ready for tonight?
Am I ready? I think so.
Okay,
it could get a little mad, everybody. Just warning you.
It can. We're going to introduce, first of all, ladies first. So we'll introduce Karin Beasant. Yeah. God, I've got to get my teeth in tonight, I'll tell you.
Bless.
Well, there you go. There's Karin. And our second guest is CJ Simonds. Hello, CJ.
Hello, buddy. How are you? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How's things with you guys?
Yeah, going well. Thank you for the invite.
No worries. No problem. It's been a long time coming, I think.
About time you had some real investigators on you.
Absolutely.
Get in there. Straight away.
I just want to wrap it all up a little bit and get people excited and commenting and having a go. I loves it.
Yeah, so if you've got any questions, put them down in the chat room and we'll ask away, definitely.
And can you keep it clean, please?
Yeah, definitely do that.
This is the man
please.
who doesn't.
Okay, so let's start this off then. What got you two guys into the paranormal in the first place?
Colin, you go first.
Well, for me, it's the interest of not knowing. The reason why I started and I got the interest into it is because obviously, and I think I would call anybody a liar that denies this, I want to know if there's something else to this life, or are we just in? Is there something that we move on to? And basically, I got interested watching the shows. I suddenly realised watching the shows wasn't really a good idea, and it didn't really respect some of the things that I respected within the paranormal, and started going off on my own with my brother, started up a little group. We went off, and it just grew from there, really, at the end of the day. And it just went on and on and on. I met Karin, the vein of my life. That laugh just gets me all the time. And basically from there, we just gelled and got on. We met fantastic people within the field. There's some great ones up there, and there's also some kooky ones, to be quite honest with you. My biggest downfall within the paranormal is, and you need to be careful you don't open Pandora's box here and ask me what my view is of the paranormal, because I'm quite blunt with my views about the paranormal, to be quite honest. And at the end of the day, I just think it's a fascinating subject.
It is indeed. And Karin?
Yeah, well, I grew up with my dad telling me ghost stories. He worked in quite a few jobs in the 1950s, 60s and experienced some things. Then I had, at the age of 30, a pub that was over 300 years old, and it was haunted to hell. It got to the case where we had a routine. If I shut my bedroom door, it would kick it. It would throw my keys. So I ignored it, and it ignored me, but it didn't like men. My dad stayed one night and vowed never to return. So when I had my son, like we all do, most haunted, we start off, then you start to form a little hobby group, and then you have two decisions. You either stay stagnant, or, lucky enough, I met the great Kevin Kerr, and who became my guru, and say, no, orbs aren't real. That isn't real. And it makes you think, research, and learn your craft. And, again, like with Colin, meeting Colin, and, all the other people in the paranormal, there are such vast different opinions. We'll never ever agree on anything, but it makes it entertaining.
It does, and I think as long as you're open-minded and willing to consider other theories and options, you just keep going on investigating, and we just all learn constantly.
I think, though I don't believe in the Ouija board, I have one, and I would do it because we get an EVP. And it's not because of the board. I want to know why we've got an EVP. So I want to know the answer behind that question.
Yeah.
And again, having friends that, like Colin, he's Wiccan, friends like Kev, total skeptics, and like myself, I'll experiment anything, even if I'm naked, to get something. They'll probably run off.
Oh dear.
We've not tried that one, have we, Paul?
No, I don't think I'd bother trying that one, to be fair.
But I think the key thing is respecting everybody's view and opinion, because everybody's got a view and an opinion of the paranormal. And I think if you keep that first and foremost and respect other people's views, other people's opinions, then really, that's paramount in this field, I think, really, at the end of the day.
No,
that
I totally agree.
Works both ways, though.
Yeah.
That works both ways, because you can be respectful and, open and be open for a discussion, but you may not always get that back.
Well, yeah, obviously, we've seen that over the years when you see what goes on Facebook, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, you got to love Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I love a good debate, because then it gives you new ideas. It's just that not everyone can debate without being rude, unfortunately.
True. Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes it gets personal, and that's not the point. The point is discussing, like you say, and sometimes that can get heated, but that's sometimes a good thing. I've had many heated discussions with Jay Lynch, my co-host, on a different show, but it's still respectful. But it's when it gets personal, that's when it becomes an issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to keep out of arguments, because then the knives come out and I'm like, no, you're right.
Well, to be quite honest, I think really, if you're sensible enough, you just steer well of the troublemakers if you can.
Yeah.
I try to.
Get on. You try to, but they always try to drag you in, and at the end of the day, it's it goes back to respecting people's views and opinions. They need to respect your view, and you need to respect their views. Really, at the end of the day,
definitely.
We're supposed to be a paranormal community. At the moment, I don't see it as a community, because there's so many different factions out there, and sometimes the lines will cross, and that's when the trouble starts. When you actually then get these vicious debates at times. And, at the end of the day, I think people have got to understand everybody's a human being at the end of the day. They want to be treated the way they would like to be treated to treat other people, So that's my view anyway.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, I've got my own pocket of my paranormal community, as it were. And, it don't tend to blur into other sections, and so no, I do agree with that.
I think as well that, if you're lucky to work with so many investigators as we do, with such a wide range of belief systems, yet we all get on and we will banter, we will prank, and we come together because the end goal is to try to get something that, depending on what our belief system is, what we think may be of, paranormal.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't tend to get into these arguments with other paranormal groups and stuff. I'd say we're all clear, and it's almost like the bad ones sort of shoot themselves in the foot, and you get to see who they are, and you just steer clear of those ones and just form your own group, as it were. And that includes like people like Kev Kerr and everyone else, and it's just so much better. You have that bit of banter, and you can learn from it, and you have all their different ideas thrown in the pot, and you can use and investigate what you feel right for you.
Yeah,
and I think that's the way to go.
I've got to be quite honest. We mentioned Kev Kerr. I mean, that guy is absolutely a great guy. I've got to be quite honest. Loves him to death. I've investigated with him. Got lots of respect for him. His para-rationalize is brilliant. His concepts that he comes out with, really at the end of the day, he comes out with common sense. Yeah. And that's what is needed within the field. That's just in my opinion. Others may disagree, but at the end of the day, I think that's what is needed. Really, is rationalization of it.
The other thing is, unfortunately, because the paranormal is so in your face nowadays, people, when something happens, they jump to it's got to be paranormal. Absolutely. They don't think rationally and think, well, how can I explain this? And then if they're not sure, go to someone who's got more experience. Sometimes someone will send me something and I think, oh, I'm not too sure. I'll send it to Glenn Smith. He'll know. So you're trying to help people that helped you when you first started. And I think that's so important.
Absolutely.
Again, not to influence their beliefs, but to steer them away from things like digital photography, airborne dust particles. I'm not saying what we see visually, which is different. I've seen weird things. But what most people take with their mobile phone with the flash on is not paranormal. It's just basic education.
I totally agree. Yeah. I'm constantly using the ASAP explanation of what orbs are. People post up the pictures, and it's like, well, I'll reply by giving them that information. If they choose to read it and learn from it, that's up to them. But other than that, really,
I try to approach it in a way that someone like myself who hasn't had a fantastic education in what I call layman's terms, I will put up a video with an IR light set the correct distance from the lens of the camcorder, no orbs. Then say my POV police one, where the IR light is next to the lens, you get orbs. It visually is simple. I like simple.
I do too.
Simpler the better.
I think sometimes concepts are put in such fancy language, and it's for normal people it can be a bit overwhelming, a little bit bewildering when you read a thesis or a theory of from some of the higher up educated people. Layman term it, bring it down so everybody can understand it. So
understandable,
so everybody knows what that concept is and how to understand that. Because when you fancy pants it, that's what I call it, fancy pants. It takes me 3 or 4 readings to just get the general gist of what they're trying to talk about. So layman term it, and bring it down so we normal people can understand it. We're not stupid, we just haven't got that kind of level of education as you said, Karin. Do you know what I mean? So bring it down to a level that is easily manageable chunks, easily understandable language, and then a lot more people understand concepts in the paranormal field. A lot more people will be able to actually go, I know what you're talking about now, so I can now argue that point rationally and with common sense, and actually feel like I'm on the same level as everybody else. And it goes around. What you learn, you then pass on. And that's what I love about the paranormal, is that you can talk to so many people. And what you've learned, you can pass along. You know, I mean, we've spoken to Kev Kerr, haven't we, Paul? And we've spoken to Rob Lee and people like that. And those are the kind of people that if I don't understand a concept, I'll be like they'll get like late night messages. Hi, Kev. What do you think of this?
Yeah. that was way over.
Please explain this to me. Yeah. And they do. And they've got the time to do it. You know what I mean? And they will quite happily or send you to someone who does, or send you to an ASAP site or an SPR site that explains it nicely for you.
Or in Kerry's case, they send her a book.
Or they send me a book. Yeah, I get a lot of books sent to me. I do get a lot of books sent to me. Thank you, everybody that sends me books, by the way. I love books.
I think you're right. I think really it's signposting people, especially new people that have come on, and you know, they post up as if they generally believe that they've got an orb or something flying through, and you can see how you can hear on their videos how excited they are. But it's then how you approach that and say to them, and if you do it respectfully and you give it some sort of explanation of why it's not belittling people, but actually explaining to them, this is what it could be. And you've got to look at it from both sides. And that, you know, for us, I think it's a responsibility for those who have been in the field for quite some time to try and help and guide new people that come into the field. Because we're not always going to be around, and there's always going to be new people that come and take your place.
But also as well that, you know, for someone like Kev Kerr, who has a very busy workload, that would actually spend the time to explain, and I say to him, layman's terms, what a reason was. Silly things like, I remember years ago at the Savoy Theatre, I was reviewing a video, and it looked like the perfect shadow man walking across the stage. So I put it up, people are saying, yeah. So I'm not so sure. I asked Kev, he said, was someone behind you with a camcorder and IR light? I checked, yes. He said, that's your reason. When they cross, it creates a shadow figure. Now, how many people know that? You know, things like this, I think are so important. It's a learning curve for us all. And once you've learned one thing, you can go on to the next thing.
Well, that's it. It's always good to get a second opinion as well on any evidence you catch. Because, you know, just because you can't explain it doesn't mean to say there isn't a logical explanation that you might have overlooked or not thought about. So,
or just don't know. Just, you know, not having had that point of education. I mean, I go right back to the beginning of my journey. I used to get so excited about orbs. You know, so excited. Yeah. And then somebody that I knew went, you do know what orbs are, don't you? And I was like, yeah, they're spirits. No, love, they're not. Have a look at, and then went through, and it was probably about a 10-hour conversation about orbs, and it was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? But now I know. So don't get excited about that. But something else I might get really excited about, and then, like, you know, I'll be talking to somebody and they'll go, but if you do, because I'm notoriously bad with tech, you know what I mean? If you do this or do that, and like you said, like you had in the theatre with the shadow person, somebody else has got that knowledge. They go, well, that's the effect it's causing. And you go, I won't make that mistake again. You know what I mean? So it's a constant learning journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody knows everything, do they? I mean, at the end of the day, everybody is learning. We learn something new every single day, and I think that's I think that's healthy, and I think that's good.
Yeah, I agree.
Indeed. Yeah, definitely. So, how did you both get involved with the Jamaica Inn?
Wow. Do you want to lead on that one?
No, that's your baby. Go on.
Well, basically, the Jamaica Inn team, as such, the in-house team came about 3 years ago, possibly a little bit more, give or take a few months. I went down, did an investigation there. Me and Karin come down. There was Amanda Keel. She was setting up the Jamaica Inn team at the time. We went down there, did that for a little while with her, helped her out, got used to the inn. I think we left then, didn't we, Karin? We leave for a little while. I think
yeah,
we did
because like I say, we're not event.
Yeah, we're not really an event company as such. No.
What was going on at the time, I didn't feel comfortable personally because my journey was going more scientific.
Yeah.
So I remember when I used to go on events, the first one, no different. The second one, you think, well, no, I don't want to stand in this 40-plus person circle. I want to do things. So it gets you questioning. And I thought, well, no, there are people out there that actually want to investigate but don't know and want to know what is scientific and what is a belief system.
Sorry, somebody just posted up about haunted dolls. Shell, thank you very much. I'm not go anywhere near haunted dolls.
So you're not interested in buying the two that I've got then?
No.
You sure?
Got a few good if you want them. Trust me.
I've got a haunted clown if you want.
Quite a bargain at £400 each.
and a Minions doll that shouts banana.
But going back to the Jamaica Inn,
yeah.
I mean, what we try to do down there now as the new team, because I was contacted by the owner there and asked to come back down to do it and to set the team back up. And then obviously me and Karin went down there, and I've got to be quite honest, I'm quite proud of what we've done down there. When we have our guests come there, we don't take them all around at once. They're split into smaller groups with one of us present, and we take them around and we show them the two different sides of it. What's the spiritual side of it? And then we'll say to them, but try it. It's table tipping, for instance. We will have them doing table tipping. They'll do it the one way, and the table will be tipping left, right, and centre as normal. But then what we'll do is we'll ask them to turn their hands over and put their nails on it and do the table tipping. And it's great because the look on their faces when they see, but the table's not moving. Well, they got to question that then. Why is the table moving with their hands on one side, and when you flip it on the other side, it's not? Same with the Ouija boards as such. We like to make them think and have their own mind. What they take away from the inn, they take away. It's not what we put in their mind. We will not say anything is paranormal there, because at the end of the day, the paranormal field is an unproven field. So really, we're all searching for that definite proof and that one picture or that one video to say, hey, look at this. But even if you capture something on video or maybe as a picture and you put it up, the first thing that happens is that's being photoshopped. And it's really, the question is, how do you get that sort of evidence? And the way that I'm going now, it's more about data. And you can thank her for that. Because
I was just about to say, you need to be talking to my Ashley Nib about that, because that's what he keeps saying to me, data.
It's data. It's using an awful lot. But I mean, when you've got guests and you're taking them around the inn, we can't do what we do normally, like an investigation that we do it, because the guests have come there to enjoy themselves. They pay good money to go down there, and we try to give them an experience, but we want them to walk away thinking about it.
Yeah, but Colin, what we do it in bite-sized chunks.
Yes,
I will do a pendulum circle afterwards. I'll tell them it's all psychological. And I'll say, now, science explains it this way, a belief system will explain it this way. It's up to you what you believe. And they say, well, if you're skeptic, why do you do it? I say, because there's always another question. There's always something that has you thinking. When you see apparition, I mean, I've seen 2 down the inn, and I still can't explain it to this day. Is it a real apparition or is it a hallucination? But at the time, you go to a blubbering mess.
Do you find that if you have a group of believers and then a group of skeptics, that one group gets more activity than the other?
Well, to be quite honest, we do get a mixture down there, don't we, Karin? In each group, we have so many that do believe passionately, but there's always one or two or maybe three of the blokes that turn up there that are being dragged down there by their partners. Yeah. They're the more sceptical ones. But what's great, and it's happened with Karin's, when Karin's taken her around, it's happened with my group as well when I've taken them around, sometimes to see the look on these guys' faces when something does happen is priceless. And it makes it worthwhile, because then they're saying, hang on, did that just happen? And they're questioning it then, and they're coming from the skeptical to thinking, oh, well, I don't know what's just happened there, you know? And then the believers are just like, well, you know, it happens to us all the time, sort of thing, and it's great.
It's like the gift shop and the hallway at the moment. You know, you find with the inn, different areas tend to be hotspots. Yeah. So we do what we call a smuggler's board, where we ask people to write down what experience they've had, where it was, and I compile it. I don't tell them. It's just it gives me an idea if people are getting the same experiences, same as doing the historical research. The famous room 5, the woman with the crying baby. We know in 1834 there was a lady that sued the landlord to recognise their illegitimate child. So is that folklore based on a fact? That's what I'm interested in, is the history and what we can prove. Now, not many people realise the first documented sighting in the newspaper was 1911. Because, you know, you find nowadays all these properties are turning up, oh, it's haunted. Well, okay, where do you base that on? Yeah. You know, what are you getting? And what experience have you had? If you want to know anything, interview the people that actually work there, that experience things themselves, and are so used to it, they ignore it now.
One of the best things about it is when we do our Friday nights for the public, sometimes you will get activity, as you know, sometimes you won't. It's being in the right place at the right time in the right location. It's always been that. And investigating is sheer luck. I mean, you could, as you know, you could go somewhere and get absolutely nothing. And we've had that at the end. But we're quite open and honest and tell the guests that you're not always going to get the tap in, the knock in. You're not always going to get the activity that goes along or associated with the inn. But then we discover that once we've done it on the Friday night, if we are still there on the Saturday and we're doing something else, the staff come up and they've come and told us that after we leave on the Friday, on the Saturday, it goes bedlam there during the day and the night.
And we proved that when we had Spirit Team film their episode. Because I don't know if you've seen the trailer, what the taps on the glass in the museum, we were absolutely astounded because that doesn't happen. Yeah. And we were jumping up and down, trying to debunk it, trying to work out why. But even when Dave saw the apparition of a little girl down the corridor by the gift shop, the following morning, I said to one of the chefs, I said, he explained what happened. She said, the girl with the long blonde hair. Yes, I see her all the time. Completely, sort of like, it happens.
They accept them down there, don't they, really? It's just part and parcel of it, really, to be quite honest with you.
Housekeeping hate us. When we've investigated, they say for 3 days after, the haunted rooms play them up. They'll clean the mirrors. There'll be little fingerprints. They'll go back 10 minutes later. There'll be fingerprints again. And they cuss us all the time.
Have you ever done a long-term investigation there for like 2 or 3 days or a week?
We've been doing we've been doing it, as I said, for about 3 years now. So we're there on a regular basis. So we take from what we do there. We've done our own. We do our own down there. We're free to go down there and investigate whatever we want to do. But it's like it goes back to what Karin said earlier on. It's the history. It's getting the factual. It's removing folklore from what's real, what is not real. It's trying to get a proper picture of what is going on down there. A lot of people seem to think that the cobbles outside and inside the stable block are original. Well, they're not original. In fact, the cobbles came up from Bodmin itself when they dug all that up, and it was brought up. The actual used to be just like stone dust, and that's all it was. And then the cobbles. Well, a lot of people are under the miscomprehension that the cobbles are original. They're not original. There was never cobbles in the yard or in the stable block. So
have you looked into what is underneath the Jamaica Inn, like stonework?
A lot of rock. Trust me. When the new wing went up, I think when they were digging the footings and the foundations, they came across large chunks of rock underneath.
I think it was just granite, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's granite.
It was a nightmare.
And it was a nightmare. However, there is rumours that there may have been a cellar or some passage. We've never discovered it. It's just pure rumour. I have begged the boss, Alan, to let me loose with a pickaxe and a sledgehammer, and he's very
funny that.
I've got to bite my lip sometimes when I go down there because I just want to rip everything up. I think, well, that's a little bit of interest over there. Can't I just dig that up just to see? It's the curiosity. It's the not knowing drives you absolutely insane.
To be fair, where would the tunnel go though? Because I've been to the
tunnel, Paul. It would be more and probably, in my opinion, I think it would be more of what I would call a stash, where they would probably hit stuff more than anything, because I can't see. Well, I don't think there ever was a cellar at the Jamaica. I think it may have just been something that went down, but we just don't know. Unless you get ground penetrating radar throughout the entire building, we're never going to know. And I don't know if I'll give my boss an heart attack, but I might ask him one day. That might be a good suggestion to get the things just to prove or disprove. Imagine if there was such a stash down there. What could be in there, though? That's what I think, see? What could be in there?
I think geophys would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, God, definitely.
I don't know if that would work because of the granite. If there's granite underneath, that's what's going to bounce the radar back, isn't it?
That's true, and there's a high quartz content in granite.
Yeah.
So going back to it as well, when I first started my team, no one could get in, small teams, to investigate the inn. And we're so proud from 2018 now that teams can do a team share. I mean, my team's hired it for the 27th with fellow investigators. And now they can take the whole old block for themselves, including the bedroom, and investigate. Because we all have bucket lists of locations around the country we want to do. And I'm just so proud that now other teams can come in and experience what we get to experience nearly every month.
Exactly.
And it's never boring because you just never know what is going to happen where.
True. In the Sorry to interrupt, but the chat room's going a little bit crazy. So I just want to say thank you to everybody in the chat room. Don't worry, we will come to your questions at some point before we finish tonight. But this is such a fascinating discussion. I don't want to sort of interrupt the flow, but we will get to you, so don't worry. Carry on.
Well, there is one thing that Charlotte's just put up, actually. It says, was it always an inn or was it anything else? Well, it used to be, in my memory, and Karin will jump in here straight away if I get this wrong.
When it comes to history.
Right. But wasn't it was a temperance hotel? In
1911, it became a temperance hotel. So basically, no alcohol. So when Daphne du Maurier stayed there, it was still a temperance hotel up to 1950-ish. Though they did sell alcohol, but it was called the Jamaica Inn Hotel. Yeah. Now, there's a rumour of a famous general staying there by one of the landlords during 1944, General C. Patton. I've researched his diaries. He does mention staying in a hotel. I know he was in Cornwall, and I know on the 25th of June 1944, he went and picked Ike up at Exeter, drove to Bodmin, and the 25th Regiment, they inspected them outside Bodmin on a hill. And if it is true, Claude Finnemore, the landlord, cooked him 12 eggs and ham for breakfast.
Yeah. 12 eggs?
Yeah.
He supplied the eggs.
Yeah. And the hotel supplied the ham.
You know, that's what fascinates me. George VI came there on his way to Camelford because Bodmin Moor was used for army exercises all through the war, and he had lunch in a field in Boventer. You know, where are the photos?
Yeah, exactly.
A German bomber crashed in the hill behind, and all the crew died instantly, and they're buried on the hill in unmarked graves. We want to try and find that.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
There's more down there, isn't there, than just the smuggling side of it. There is a whole history down there, really.
Sorry, in 1944, there were 8,000 US soldiers on Bodmin Moor around there. In 1944, there were 1 million US soldiers in Britain just before the D-Day landings. I'm off again.
No, you carry on. I love this. Is the bits. These are the bits of this shows a true historian researcher, because these are the things that will get missed by just a normal team. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Just a normal basic internet search. Yeah. You've read the Patterson Diary or Patterson, yeah? Is that right?
I went to Congress and I went through his diaries, tracing his journey from Knutsford, how he then flew to London. He saw a Spitfire fly over, then took the train to Cornwall, and I know for around about 3 days he was travelling around Cornwall, because what done, they didn't allow him to attend the D-Day landing, because I have a friend who's a military historian. They kept him on the East Coast to fool the Germans into thinking they were going to launch D-Day landings from Norfolk to Calais. That was the plan. And they gave out false radio signals to mislead the Germans. That's why the D-Day landings were successful. They misled them.
Oh, you've got to love a historian in the house.
Oh.
But you also, when you do a location, you really should research the history of that location, because you never know what you uncover. And it's just fascinating, some of the things that we found out. I don't want to say too much, because obviously some stuff we want to hold back, because we want to try some experiments on down there to see if we can get some reaction. Because recently when we've done the previous investigations, we've had some interesting responses from a certain area of the inn. And we're still trying to figure that one out, that what's causing that. So we've got to be all over it. Now that's going to take time, but it was some interesting activity. But obviously, we got to keep some trade secrets.
Indeed.
But that's the beauty, though, isn't it, of having a location at your fingertips for ongoing investigations. You can do this depth of research. When you're going out every week or once a month or something like that, you don't get the chance to do that in-depth research that you do if you've got a designated location like you have. I mean, like you say, if you was going out... Yeah, if you go out to a different location every month, there's no way you'd be able to do this in-depth research, historical or paranormal, in regards to this, in regards to any location. You kind of do what I class as like the fluff level, what everybody else has done. But when you have this location that you've got extended time, you get to do this, and this is fascinating.
Yeah. They're also, you imagine it's local families. We know from 1770 the name of the families, their spouses, the children who lived there. Yeah. We know, like you say, of that, I call it the first CSA case in 1834. We spent ages finding out who bought the inn, who was responsible for certain changes, and also the site of the big man in the Cape, where he was sighted, during what time periods he was sighted. And also, there's a certain Celtic love song that's very popular in the stable block, because Cornish and Celtic go hand in hand, the old language.
Oh, I could talk to you for hours.
Please be my guest. I will pay. I will pay for that.
Excellent. And Colin's going to pay us even better.
Yeah, awesome.
Definitely anything to get any peace and quiet from her.
Have you had much Celtic language come through on voice EVPs and things like that?
No, not really. I don't think we've had anything of that calibre, to be quite honest.
We seem to... I mean, my first ever apparition was actually in the museum, and it wasn't a classic figure. It was... think of an old film that you cut slithers into, and every now and again a slither would come into focus.
Yeah.
And it was a classic Victorian blonde-haired child, which I didn't know is what is seen at the time, on the knees with the white over-smock dress. And she's seen all around the inn. Colin, we get EVPs of children. Yeah. We also, this one chap that seems to be present in the stable block, if you say his name and put a camcorder and EVP by the door to the till, you most likely get a yeah response when you call out for him. That fascinates me.
Yeah. Especially when you know there's nobody there as well, only yourselves, or you know where people are situated, so there's no way that would have come across. And it still blows away. I mean, I love EVPs. My equipment is a camera designed by Glenn Smith and a H5 Zoom and my trusty Olympus recorder. And that's all I use these days, because I've shied away from most of the equipment and using the equipment personally. I like to use a lot of sensors as well. And then the EVPs, just to see, because EVPs really do fascinate me. It's like, where do they come from? It's out of midair. And if you're in a room on your own and you're asking questions and you get a female that gives you a sentence, and I had one of these at Woodchester Mansion at one time when I was down there. There was only two of us in the cellar, and we were about to do a session, and when I reviewed... Yeah. No, that sounded wrong, didn't it? I'll have to stand that correctly. We're about to do an EVP session. It's just like Chris putting me off. We had a voice, a clear sentence over the top of it saying, "You've got to get me out of here." And it was a woman. And it wasn't the girl that was in the room whilst we were asking the questions.
It was a controlled EVP session. She read from a sheet, didn't she?
Yeah.
So it was fully controlled.
And it's about the best one I've ever had. Have I ever topped that EVP? No. And I do think when they come along, you need to embrace them, because they don't come along that often, to be quite honest. Not really good EVPs. What
we do a lot of, we take people up to the attic above the museum. Now, obviously, when it was first built, there wasn't a floor there. It would have been more open, probably half for a stable boy. We say nothing. We ask them to look around, just to write down what they feel, what they think. And it's surprising, I would say a good 70-75% will come back with a hanging, and yet we've given no indication to anything. We haven't pre-led them.
Yeah.
So are they picking something? We have no proof actually a hanging took place.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, skeptic and believer will pick up something similar. And that's the experiments we like doing. You know, trying something different, don't we, Colin?
Yeah.
I mean, I do a little trick with a bull in a pitch dark with the guys to show them Scott Toma. You know, the mind will see what it wants to see and what they make out of it. And it's fascinating sometimes when you see their reactions and them screaming, But then when the lights go on and you explain to them what's took place, it brings them down a little bit. But again, it takes them back to thinking what are their eyes seeing, and is the brain tricking them in thinking it's paranormal when it's not? You know, so we do all sorts of things down there like that, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I've been down there a few times, not to investigate, but just on the way home from holidays and things. And we normally pop in for a bit of food. And yeah, we go into the museum bit and the gift shop, and then round to the bar for a little while.
Mainly the bar, more than probably, Paul. Come on.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah.
No, he's more the restaurant, I'm more the bar. No, come on, get it right, guys.
Well, it's near enough the same place, it's fine.
No. Splitting hairs.
But I would love to just spend a whole week down there and just...
To be quite honest, there's a hell of a lot to do. Although it's on Bodmin Moor, and you look at Bodmin Moor, what's on Bodmin Moor? There's lots of little bits of history tucked in here, tucked in there, little abandoned churches that you go down there and you see the Temple of the Cross on there, and you know it's because it's that old, it's covered in moss, and it's like, wow, it's just fascinating down. I love it down. I've got to be honest, I call it my second home, to be quite honest.
But I mean, also the inn was built in 1750 because the staging coaches had trouble getting to Bodmin Moor. Mm-hmm. So they used the White Hart in Launceston, and they purposely built it for the stagecoaches. But what people don't realise is between the 1700s and about the 1840s, I would say a quarter of all tea, brandy, etc., rum was smuggled from the Cornish coast out of sight of the excisemen, and it would pass through, hence the smugglers and, you know, that concept. But also, because you would find the local justice, which would be the local gentry, they were the ones organising it. So a lot of things never got discovered. It is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I did look at the Jamaica Inn website earlier, and they said that a lot of people believe that it was named the Jamaica Inn because of the Jamaica rum that was smuggled in. But there was another explanation as well, but I can't remember what that said.
It was called the New Inn when it was very first built.
Yeah. Okay.
It never started off as the Jamaica Inn. It started off as the New Inn. And
But Colin, tell them about what that chap said.
Sorry?
The chap said about the jam.
Right, yeah. This is what was placed up on our site, on our Jamaica Inn ghost hunting, and I found it fascinating. I have no history of it, only what he's wrote. But apparently, he wrote that they used to have jam go there, and there was a little story. Whereas they were going to get caught one day, and so the landlord put the fruit into the brewing barrels, and it was left in there because the peelers had come up from Bodmin jail. And basically, anybody can go on the actual page and read this. It's on the visitors' side, and it is quite fascinating. And he said, but to cut a long story short, what he was saying was that what they actually done was made jam and didn't realise they had made jam. So hence the peelers couldn't, or the police down there at that time, excise customs, couldn't do anything to them because they've never seen jam. So hence the Jam Maker Inn. Okay. Now, whether that is got a truth in history, I do not know. I just found it really, really interesting. And I did go into room 3, and some of the guests, I would hope, if they were on here now, they would testify. We went in there, and I thought, this is when I just discovered this little bit of thing that somebody had put up. And I thought, all right, you know, as you do, try it, call out. Was jam made at this place? Was it called the Jam Maker Inn? Well, as I did, every single K2 device in that room went ballistic. I have never seen it before, and I have never seen it since. It went crazy in there. Soon as you mentioned the Jamaica Inn. Now, if it's true, I don't know. I'll put my hands up. I was just reading off what somebody else had put up. I think he was some historian, poet, something like that. And he had done a little bit of research. But it's up on the page for anybody to see and read.
Yeah, I've just looked up again where I read about the Jamaica rum. And they also said that there's another theory where it derived that a local landowner family called the Trelawney family.
Trelawney family were governors of Jamaica.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And they said that's another theory of why it was called Jamaica.
Yes, that's another theory why it was called Jamaica.
I just wondered whether or not you've actually found out the real reason.
Well, again, because all that land was owned by gentry, etc., and it was 2 generations were governors of Jamaica Inn. But again, how can you prove it was named after the family? You know, these things aren't written down during the time. There's no factual evidence. It's folklore. So, unfortunately, unless in the Trelawney family archive, someone wrote a letter and say, "Oh, that pub decided to call itself the Jamaica Inn," we won't know.
Yeah. Okay. Kerry, is there any questions in the chat room that we need to cover?
Not questions so much, but I just want to give a shout out. Colin's obviously been reading the chat room as we've been going on. I want to give a shout out to Kyla, Shell, James, Kathy, Kaz, Steph, Ginny, and Moo. Or Mia.
That's her daughter, Mia.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, Alison is listening. Alan and Philip is in the chat room. Is Ginny one of your team members?
Karin.
She's my South Bristol one, but sometimes she comes down to the Jamaica Inn as a guest investigator with her Demanti clipboard.
She seems to know you guys quite well. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's something about a pink jumper.
Don't even go there, Jimmy.
Had to mention it. Couldn't resist not mentioning that one.
Collins.
There's something about maybe a tunnel or a basement that no one knows about now, which we covered earlier in the show. And I think you should start digging, Colin, in the middle of the night when everyone's asleep.
I should dig, and I think my boss needs to let me dig.
Yeah, I think it'd be more plausible to have a cellar than a tunnel because there's nothing. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. This tunnel would have to go for miles.
Also, the reason they dug cellars was to keep food fresh to preserve, because if they dug down, the temperature would naturally be lower. So that's why it was always done earth strewn cellar underneath the building.
Yeah, it would make sense to have a cellar.
Well, there has been rumoured, whether it's true or not, but in the one area, and we have got some very interesting footage. We can't show it at the moment because it's on the CCTV at the inn, and they're trying to work out how to get it off for us to put up. But there is an interesting video, which I'm not going to go too much into because obviously we want to put it up and show it. But in the room that this video was taken, apparently when they were doing the room, one of the I can't remember off the top of my head who come over and said to me that when they were doing the flooring, they seen it looked like a round indentation. So there may have been a well there as well at one time. Now, if that is the case, maybe that might have been the entrance, but it's covered over and it's blocked off. We know, I was pointed out exactly where it was, and that would be of interest to look into where it was, because they couldn't understand why they were getting the round impression in the floor.
Yeah.
So that gave it away straight away that there could have been a well at one point. Whether it was there or not, again, it needs further investigation.
Again,
they would have been a well
need...
because they had to have a fresh water source.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Definitely.
Yeah. And they think you should do a 12-egg omelette in, honour of the 12-egg omelette. The 12-egg breakfast. Yes, it's... Oh, God, the place is beautiful, isn't it?
Oh,
it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the atmosphere. No matter how many times we go there, when we go over the brow of the hill and you see it in the distance, I still get a tummy flip with excitement.
I mean, Karin, I just want to jump in a minute because there was one time that we went down and we arrived there about 6 o'clock in the morning, remember?
Yeah.
And as we were coming up to the top of the brow just to go in, we looked back and where you've got the indentations going down into the mist had filled it. And it looked as if the inn was floating on clouds.
Oh, wow.
There is pictures up on my Facebook page of it. It was absolutely stunning. We were gobsmacked. Well, in fact, we stood outside for about 10 minutes, freezing, because it was that mesmerising to look at it, because you didn't see the motorway. You heard it, but you didn't see it, but you saw the white mist that just filled it. And it was just like lakes. It was beautiful. Absolutely.
It's like something out of War of the Worlds. When the cloud comes over, it was that thick.
Yeah.
And it just filled the valley. It was beautiful and peaceful. No one was round.
Why are they going on about coffee in the chat room?
They said it's the most important piece of equipment in their kit.
Can I just say as well, people don't realise there are other buildings. Before Alan bought the inn, there's an annex opposite that was built around 1770, and the general manager Sammy lives there with Charlotte, one of the other ladies that works for her, and they live in the top floor flat that used to be originally 2 shops. And the things that they've had, tucks of hair, they've had so many things happen, and there were other buildings that were owned when the inn was sold each time. Yeah. It's surprising. There.
Especially the sheds out the back where the new wing is. If you look at the old pictures, you would have seen that there was a lot more behind there than what there was. And obviously it's not there today, sadly. But time moves on and things get built over. So, but, the footprint is still there as such. It's a fascinating place to visit, to be quite honest.
One of the well-known phenomena at Jamaica Inn is horses. You're supposed to be able to hear horses in the courtyard, aren't you?
I'm going to be quite honest here and tell you that in the years that I have been there, I've never heard a horse.
Okay.
But I've got to be honest. I'm not going to say I've heard horses. We've been told that there has been a lot of people have come up and said they've heard the horses at night time and during the day. And I think at one point there was mention of a carriage as well that they could hear going up and down. But I've never. So I wouldn't want to comment on something that I've not actually heard or anything about,
That's the most famous is The Man Sat on the Wall. That started the newspaper story in 1911, which the locals called Jack. And supposedly he was having a drink of ale and he was lured out into the moor and murdered. Obviously, that's just the folklore side. But when we call out in the bar, we get a response. And once we had 2 Australian women. Now, obviously, what people don't realise, from the 1600s, if you were convicted of a crime, until we lost America, you were sent onto the plantations. And then after 1770, you were sent to Australia. And every time these Australian women spoke, the equipment would go crazy. And we were trying to debunk it, and it seemed to answer them where he was a convict, so say, and landed at Melbourne. And this woman said, well, actually, I know that was one of the sites. She said, because I know my history in Australia. That was fascinating.
But it's never happened since, has it?
No.
And this is the thing. You get these sporadic forms of activity, but you don't get them constantly. I mean, it's not like, shall I say, some of the TV shows where people go down there and they're expecting to hear tap, 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 scratching. We haven't got a film crew that goes running around, unfortunately, doing that for us.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry. I'm so naughty. But yeah, people watch the programs, and then when they come on these investigations, they're actually expecting that's the type of investigation they're looking that they're expecting, and it's fresh into not educate, but it's fresh into to try and show them that it doesn't always go that way.
Yeah.
Just for to understand that.
I think our clientele, our guests now, we're finding we're getting the older, so sort of late 20s upwards. Yeah. So the ones that actually want to take it seriously, that don't want to be frightened and actually want to ask questions and to understand how equipment works and to use it, and then to go off and do their own experiments. It's getting people thinking outside the box and not just telling them, do this, do that. Say, right, what do you want to... That equipment's flashing. How do we debunk it? It's the most important thing about being an investigator is questioning everything. Yeah. And if you can install that and then people still have fun, which it seems to be working because of the high number that come back again and again.
And the returning guests.
Yeah.
You two work very well, very much like fun. I do, to be fair. I like to do that. Rather than giving them the most haunted experience, you're giving them an experience of being a paranormal investigator for the night. And again,
to be honest, Paul, right?
That's what I'm trying to do.
To be honest with you and totally truthful to you, I always say to them when we go down and we do the little talk beforehand, sometimes if we're going to sit at a location for 8 hours and get nothing, you buggers are going to sit there and if you don't get nothing, you're going to get nothing. That's what it does. That is it. If you're not always going to get that activity, you're going to have them times where you're going to walk away and say that's a complete and utter waste of money. But don't give up on it, because you're not there at the right time at the right place. You might go somewhere else and bang, you've got lots and lots and lots of activity.
Yeah,
indeed.
So, we don't like anybody going away disheartened, but there was...
Honesty.
Honesty is the best part. It's open, honest, and transparent. If any of the guests see anything they don't understand, we encourage them to approach us and say to us, well, what's that? What's that doing? Ask the questions. It's important to ask questions because you'll never get the answers if you don't ask.
True.
And like me, one time when I asked somebody, are you going to call out in the stable block? Somebody call out, dead silent out of 10 people. None of them wanted to call out, and you really had to work to get them to call out. And once they did, and they started relaxing a bit, then they started having a bit of activity. But you're going to have Sundays where you get that just sit there, and you've really got to work the guests to get involved. And at the end,
when you investigate a location, you can't have one person asking out. Sometimes it's one particular voice or approach that someone has that gets things happening. And if it's a guest, let them carry on. Yeah. Let them see. Also, because of a gentleman in the stable block, if we've got handsome young men, if they ask out, it seems to really work.
And the best part about it is you all see them walking and they all got their backs towards the wall as well, because they get really, really nervous. But when they call out, it does react. I've got to be quite...
We had a stag party. I mean, of course, we have a strict no drinking policy. And their first reaction...
So they'd be drinking.
Oh, my God. But at the end of the night, they had a brilliant time because one of them there... He was a catalyst in the stable block. Every time he asked, things happened. So, they then spent the rest of the night teasing him, laughing and really enjoying themselves. And you get pleasure seeing people have the excitement that you have while you're investigating.
Were those the guys that actually went off and formed their own little team?
Yes.
They did, didn't they? They went off afterwards and formed their own little team. So they had a great time down there. So, that's good. That's what you're looking for, is to encourage, but get them in the right direction,
That's it. I mean, I've been out with people and they've formed their own groups and teams, and I've said to them, if they're quite serious about it, I'm quite happy taking them to investigations that I'm going to, or I'll get them on the radio to put themselves out there a little bit more. Trying to build them up a little bit and help them as much as possible.
Oh, that's lovely. I think we have a duty to help those that want to start out with advice. Again, not telling them what is right, what is wrong, giving them the option to go the path that they want to go, but help guide them to what has been universally debunked.
Yeah.
And, I love seeing, we had Roxanne and Adam a few years ago come down, a newly married couple, and they formed their own team and they joined us on many investigations. Yeah. And what fantastic times we had, and also, pranking each other. You've got to have a prank, get the laughter going.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. The more relaxed you are, the better.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's just
prank all the time, I can assure you.
But then just another way of investigating as well, because if you're sort of having a laugh, you're building up that energy.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Laughter creates the energy around you.
Sometimes, you can even go to a location and ignore the spirit completely and just have a chat amongst yourselves. And then it's like the spirit's like, hang on a minute, you come here to see me. And
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to get the both of you to come down.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yes. And then you can probably maybe come down when we do one of our events down there, our investigations.
That'd be fabulous.
What we do. And then obviously at the end, when it's all finished, me and Karin could then take you around the inn and we could do a private investigation. And then you could, get to know the spirits down there.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. And I think this year I'm going to be spending most of the time travelling around the country with Paul.
Road trip.
I think you will enjoy it. I think you really will enjoy it.
Oh, hell yeah. I think we would. And it's been on my bucket list for a little while now, so I'm definitely going to be taking you up on that one.
We could do a new show. We could do like the Great Paranormal Road Trip.
No, we can't do a new show. Sorry, I'm going back to the beginning of the show where we talked about you. Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Sorry, brain freeze there.
I like that idea, Paul.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, that. But sadly, we've come to the end of this show. I'd just like to thank you guys for coming on and joining me for tonight. Absolutely fabulous.
Well, thank you for having us. It's been an honour.
I would have to have you on the show again at some point. It'd be brilliant.
You want us back?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll pick another subject and we'll just go off. That's fantastic. I want to thank everybody in the chat room.
Paranormal.
Yes, definitely. I want to thank everyone in the chat room and, of course, my co-host Kerry.
Always welcome. Always welcome.
Yeah, cool. And we shall see you all again next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Hold on.
Okay, go on.
Tomorrow night, on Wednesday night, we have got Sean Cadman with Michael Postlethwaite. Yeah, he's coming in.
Oh, is that a new show?
That's a new show starting off at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Sean Cadman is launching his Supernatural Chat show, and he has got an amazing guest. He has got Michael Postlethwaite. I can never say that word. And then followed by 9 o'clock by Haunted Histories. She is talking about the hauntings of Howsham.
You mean Penny? Not
Penny,
she.
yeah, Haunted Histories, Penny G. Morgan is on afterwards. So don't forget, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, Sean Cadman, 9 o'clock, Haunted Histories.
I'm so going to be there.
Sorry, I just wanted to get that in. And on Thursday night, we've got the Spectral Zone with Kaz Rooney talking to Anand Celeste. And then Friday night, the Dark Mirror Show is talking about Norse mythology. And then on Sunday, we have got the Spirit Dimension with myself talking to two shaman, Crystal Atlantis and Jackie Manton. So I just wanted to give the guys a little heads up with what's coming, because good week this week. We've got a really good week lineup.
Well,
awesome.
Well, tuning in and listening to that, because that's right up my street.
I am too, definitely. It's going to be good. Well, see you all again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.